Oh, it's you again. Come in, warm yourself by the fire. You know where it's at. I wasn't expecting company today, but you're always welcome here, friend. How have you been? Good. I'm glad to hear that. I've just started today's chores, but I suppose I have time to sit down and talk with you again. Unfortunately, I haven't had any time to go out and look for a good story to give you. So instead, I think I need to tell you one of my own. This is true as far as anyone's concerned. And if nobody believes it but me, well then, I'll take that to my grave. One of the first things I learned about living in the long, dark woods, where I do now, is that you need to carry a whistle. Seems like a bizarre little factoid, doesn't it? Just something you'd otherwise disregard, but when your nearest neighbor is 30 minutes away, you take whatever advice you can get for self-preservation and self-reliance out here. You're told to carry a whistle because emergency services can hear that farther and you can use it longer than you would if you were relying on your own voice, your own screaming. I learned that from my grandfather, who was a bit of a hillbilly, for lack of a better term, and, like me, had survived in the woods a great while. I took whatever advice the old man cared to give me, because it all was either learned in blood or learned by failure. I also happen to have the worst insomnia, quite possibly in the entire world. There's been days before that I've gone without sleep, and one of the things I fool myself into thinking will solve the problem is going for long walks at night in the woods. Now, I know many of you are already saying that this is a terrible idea, and for the most part, you're wrong. The woods aren't any more scary at night than they are during the day. They're a lot more quiet. It's just you and the sound of nocturnal creatures outside. Usually a possum, a raccoon, the odd coyote. Thousands and thousands of crickets. I love it out here. It's a great way to clear your head, and the crisp, cold night air meets your face like a caress. Almost every single time I've gone out for a walk in the woods, it's been rather uneventful. I don't take headphones or anything. After all, would hate to meet up with a coyote. But I still enjoy my time. I enjoy the sounds. Except for this one time. One evening, it was about 2 in the morning, and I decided it was time for a walk. I grabbed my coat, my boots, my flashlight, and of course, my whistle. I would have brought my cell phone as well, but I had to leave it charging. I had work in the morning, and after all, you were on your way to hear another story, weren't you? As I stepped off the porch and set off at the edge of the woods, I told myself that it was going to be a completely routine, uneventful kind of night. Those are lies we tell ourselves. You know that, right? That everything's going to be okay, it's all going to be routine. Those are lies. I was perhaps 5 acres off when I started thinking about maybe heading back to the house. As I turned heel and aimed my flashlight up the hill, I heard a whistle from over my shoulder. Now, this wasn't the cry of a nightingale or anything like that. This, very distinctly, was a whistle. So I took mine off of my keyring on my hip, and I blew back. There, of course, came a reply right away. It sounded a little ways off, deeper in the more dense part of the woods. I wondered who would be out this late, and, more specifically, who was in my woods. I started towards that way, thinking better than to call out, and the whistle grew louder and louder. Now, no doubt at this point, with you being a seasoned traveler and listener of tales, you're probably starting to think to all that Appalachian folklore you've heard about whistling in the woods. All of that is bullshit. The only reason people tell you to stay out of the woods is because people are growing weed, usually. But this was different. There was a sense of urgency to this. The way the whistle just warbled out on the final end of it got to me. So I followed it. Deeper into the woods I went, my feet tripping over kudzu, my palms blindly reaching out for moss-covered trees. And it never seemed to get me any closer. The whistle got louder, but I never got closer. And so I continued, until finally I heard it. I was right on top of it, and I looked down and there was a discarded whistle sitting in the underbrush. One of those big orange numbers, like they use at football games. And then from over the trees I heard it again. I decided that was the time to start backing up very slowly and quietly and making my way out of the woods the best I could. And so I did. I made it back to my house, I set the deadbolt, and I made sure my rifle was loaded. It was quite some time before I went for another walk in the woods. I started carrying a gun as well. Because it wasn't just the whistle that I found on the ground, not anymore. I started finding other things. A photo of a girl sun-bleached and torn. A bag of white pills that I couldn't identify that was half open. A broken shovel propped up against a tree. And a blue tarp, like the kind you use for collecting leaves. I didn't pick these things up. I didn't take them anywhere with me. I knew better. See, all those Appalachian folk stories about whistling in the woods are bullshit by and large. But as with all tall tales, there is always an undercurrent of truth. If you hear whistling in the woods, you leave as fast as you can and you don't respond. Not because some kind of creature is going to get you, but because you could turn into an accomplice. Well, I think the coffee pot is about to quit. If you'd like to stay and get a cup, you could. Oh, right. I understand. Well, should you choose to visit me again, you're more than welcome to. Be safe, my friend. And watch out when you're in the woods.